First down, Rams. We are live. I'm Peo Simon. This is my incredible co-host, Rams House. Rams House, how are you, my friend? It's been too long.
It has been too long. And to be honest, I was just looking at our First Down Rams logo above us and realizing that's now an outdated logo. That's
Wow, you're
that's been
right.
how long since we've done a
Oh,
First Down Rams. So I'm
oh,
excited to talk Rams with you, talk about the draft, all of the different opinions. This draft was very fun, very
yeah,
different. So excited to be able to do it with you, my friend.
absolutely. And I love that, we're almost a week out from the draft, about 6 days here. And for all of you who are watching with us live or on the replay, thank you so much for tuning in, whether you're watching on my channel, the Rams Radar, or over on Rams House's channel. We appreciate you guys tuning in. And we are aware that two of our favorite Rams content creators in Tuna and Sheriff Joe Bags of Rams Showcase are also streaming. So
Yeah.
shout out to them. Sorry for the schedule conflict, but
Yeah.
if you're looking for Rams content on a Wednesday night, you have a buffet of options.
Oh yeah. Whatever they want to pick, whatever flavor. We will not be offended if you go over to
No,
both horns and watch them. They do some incredible
absolutely.
work.
Yeah,
But
no, that's quality content there.
oh yeah. Oh yeah. But yeah,
um,
Peo, you ready to talk about the draft here? Like,
I am. I know you sent me the rundown, which was fantastic, but I just would love to know kind of like this draft was weird, right?
yeah. It was
I
a
think
it was a lot different than I think a lot of us expected, which definitely caused some uproar in the fan base. I mean, the one pick was obviously like the Ty Simpson pick, I think blindsided everybody. But just even of the fact of like this draft only had 5 players being sent to the Rams
yeah.
compared to what we've been accustomed to, the larger draft classes, even a couple years ago, like 14 picks were made. This one, it's only 5. And the consensus is like probably most of, if not all of these guys won't even really make an impact for this year's Rams. That's at least the plan, as long as we stay healthy. So it was a very interesting draft.
Yeah, and I think like that's one of those things that like when you go into a draft and your roster, it's pretty already kind of decided who like it's gonna like anyone drafted by the Rams is gonna have a really hard time making this roster. And it almost gives a like, okay, you're being drafted to develop for next year's team, right?
Yeah.
And so with that in mind, I'm kind of glad it was a smaller draft class, right? Because
Yeah.
like already like last year the Rams cut some draft picks during the off season, and I think that this is really just telling to where the Rams are as a team in this Super Bowl window that's wide open right now.
Yeah. I mean, because like, I don't know what your expectations were going into this draft based on how many players we were going to select, but in my head, I didn't think there would be a ton just
Yeah.
based on the fact that it's like you were talking about, this roster is so competitive that even trying to find the needs on the roster is hard to do, at least for this season. So it's like man, we probably won't be able to select a lot of players because most of them will frankly be cut in all likelihood. So that definitely added an extra layer into this draft of just like I think all of us had an idea where this draft was going to go, and the Rams went a completely different way. But the only thing that happened that I did expect was the fact that this class wasn't going to be so big just because of the competitive nature of it, and that speaks to the window that we're in right now, trying to strike in that window.
Absolutely. And I think that Jake Ellenbogen did a really great job on the NFC West roundtable last night, and he brought up. He said, people aren't all like when they do draft grades for the Rams, they've been a lot lower, but they aren't factoring in the Jalen Watson signing and of course the Trent McDuffie trade, which
Mm-hmm.
I totally agree with. Like
Yeah.
those two acquisitions early in the offseason, really that was the deepest need for this Rams team coming into it.
Mm-hmm.
So they were able to play the draft a lot different than what I think a lot of people expected them to. And the more and more I reflect on this draft, the more and more I really do like the Ty Simpson pick. The more and more I like getting another tight end to add to this stacked tight end room. And I know Les Snead kind of talked about that today on Rich Eisen, which was cool for sure.
Yeah, that kind of like transitions us. Like just into the thought, because the way I titled my version of the stream is, will the Rams 2026 draft strategy backfire or produce? And obviously that's a hard question to answer when they haven't even touched a practice field yet. And I understand we can't make a definitive answer here, but just going off of what we've talked about with this draft and the feeling that it's likely that this draft class probably won't make a big impact for the 2026 Rams, and that's the hope. Do you agree with that kind of strategy that the Rams had? Because while their roster is very set and they could make a push and try to go to the Super Bowl even without a draft, in my opinion, with how good their roster is,
Yeah.
do you think it was smart to draft the way that they did, where it feels like these guys probably won't make an impact this year when you do have a competitive NFL, and even your own division in and of itself is going to be tough to get out of there? So what are your thoughts on the overall strategy of the way the Rams went about this draft?
I think from the cookie cutter, logic that we often as fans are captive by, of like, what, draft for needs, or draft best player available. The Rams seem to take a different approach of, we're kind of drafting for developing, right? Like we're not and let's face it, like at the 13th pick, a lot of people, they wanted Lemon. They wanted, an impact player that, opposing teams would have to account for this year.
Mm-hmm.
And they didn't do that. And so when those expectations are not met, it's often human psychology to overreact and be like, what? You didn't do what I thought you were going to do, or you didn't do a version of what I thought you were going to do. And that's how you got essentially the overreaction that we got, I think, from the Ramley as a whole. I will also say that I do think the fact that this draft was a boring draft, like overall, it was a boring draft.
Right. Yeah.
I think that escalated the Rams, pick at 13. And I know we're going to talk more about Ty Simpson in a little bit, but like, I just think overall, the people are being really hypercritical of the Rams right now because they did make the biggest surprise of the draft in drafting Ty Simpson. And anytime a team drafts a quarterback in the first round, there always is going to be an extra level of criticism that comes with it, right?
Yeah. No, I think you summed that up really well. And you brought up Jake Ellenbogen earlier with the point he made. Another good point that I saw him make was the fact that one of the reasons the Rams got so much criticism, especially from their own fan base, and especially with the Ty Simpson pick, was not only the fact of like, okay, you have your own idea of what you want them to do. Makai Lemon's there. That was a fan favorite just because of the whole California connection. And that all makes sense. And there's a way that people wanted to go. But a point that Jake made that I definitely agreed with was the fact that this was the second time that Sean McVay has been able to make a first round pick. And this is the highest that Sean McVay and Les Snead as a pairing have been able to select a player. And so it makes sense to me that if your expectations are built that high and you have an idea of where it's going to go, you probably won't pick here again, at least in an ideal world, anytime soon. So, and the fact that the Rams kept the whole Ty Simpson connection so under wraps, like this was a rumor floated out there every now and then, but it wasn't heavily reported that we had interest. All of that together, and this is only talking about Ty Simpson, but like all that together can make sense why Rams fans reacted the way they did. And I was definitely one of them. Like when the Rams made that pick and Goodell said it out loud, I was staring at the screen for like 30 seconds to a minute, like just in silence, just because I was in shock. I was not expecting that. But one thing that I want to happen with this, not only from the Rams perspective, but also for him himself, is for the Ty Simpson pick to work out because of all the scrutiny it's gotten. Because you feel bad for a guy like on the best night of his life to get all this criticism.
And he took it like a champ.
So he did. He did take it like a champ. And so hopefully it ends up working out. But yeah, overall, with this draft strategy and with the way the Rams approached it, it makes sense, especially later on in the rounds, in my opinion, that most of these picks probably won't be making an impact for this team with how good it is. The only thing that like I could push back on with them with what they did at 13 is the idea that I had in my head is like, okay, it's probably going to be a wide receiver in edge or best player available at pick 13. And specifically like wide receiver and edge with the way the board fell made sense to me because Puka's about to get paid and he's about to get a big contract. So that's obviously going to be a big expensive thing. Devontae is probably in his last year with the Rams. And who knows if he stays healthy with him being 34 years old. So wide receiver to me made sense for now, but also for like next year to help him out ahead of time. And then edge, like I bet Byron Young's probably going to get a pretty big contract as he deserves. And so picking an edge there would make sense. So that's my only like argument and pushback to this pick. But I can also understand with time and with knowing that Sean McVay and Les Snead are aligned with the pick of Ty Simpson, I can understand the vision behind it. It's just like, I think that you can't really have a perfect pick in this scenario, but that's really the only place I would push back on the way that they drafted in this case.
Yeah. And I just, we're going to talk about this entire draft class as a whole, but I do want to give some shout outs here. Appreciate everyone tuning on in with us here on First Down Rams. We'll go live periodically throughout the off season when there's stuff to talk about. But I see SoFire here. Always glad you're in the chat. Thanks for your great comments here. We got Daniel in the chat, and of course the Weekly Huddle Sports. He's asking, who do you think wins the backup position between Stetson Bennett and Ty Simpson? I'm gonna save it until we see a little bit more from Ty Simpson. I do see a scenario there where Bennett stays the emergency third string quarterback as he's been doing, and Simpson gets that opportunity to be the backup quarterback. What do you think?
Yeah. I think as it stands right now, when none of them have practiced, I would actually lean more towards Bennett, which would be shocking to people just because he's not the first round pick. But just with the fact that Simpson has only played 15 games in his college career and he's raw, he has time to develop. And then Stetson Bennett knows our system. He's been in the system developing. You wouldn't like to see any of these players take the field this year, obviously. But from where we stand right now, I'd actually expect probably Stetson Bennett to start just because he's more familiar and he's been in the league longer.
You mean be backup?
Yeah, as a backup.
Yeah. Fair enough. No, all great points. And from what I hear, like the main criticism of Ty Simpson is that he hasn't played that much like football, right? Because he waited around Alabama, got the chance, had kind of a rough end to the year last year. And but every interview I've seen from Ty Simpson since being drafted, I'll say it makes me like Ty Simpson even more.
Yeah. So just overall with the pick of Ty Simpson and him coming into the Rams, obviously more of a future move. Who knows how much longer Stafford's going to play? I'd probably put it anywhere between 1 to 3 years. But I can't really say how long he's going to play. But with Ty Simpson coming here, I think the interesting thing with this pick, and knowing what we know about Sean McVay being behind it and doing a lot of work behind the scenes, I find it interesting because Sean McVay has never picked a quarterback this high, and we've always had the conversation of what would a quarterback look like that Sean McVay handpicks, that he's behind and that he wants to develop. Because obviously coming into the situation that he came into before, Jared Goff was already on the roster. It wasn't like he was the one that picked Jared Goff himself. And so we've had many, many years to be able to do this and maybe take one of those end of the first round quarterbacks or do that kind of thing. What do you think makes Ty Simpson stand out in this scenario of why the Rams would pick him? And what kind of gets you excited about him, if anything, coming to the Rams, being this is the first time McVay kind of handpicked a quarterback in the first round?
Dude, this is a fantastic question. And if you would have asked me this last week right after the draft, I would have had a very different answer than I have now. Right. After the draft, I would have been I'll admit to it. I fell for the media narrative of like, maybe Sean McVay didn't actually like this pick. Like that seems weird to me. Like just based on his post-game presser that, if anyone who watches my channel knows that I love watching a good Sean McVay presser. So I think after the draft, there was I immediately pretty much the rest of that night for a solid 2 hours was just watching Ty Simpson highlights from college. And I remember thinking okay, you know what? This guy actually, I kind of think he could be a good NFL quarterback if he gets time to develop. And I see why the Rams did this. But now that you're asking me this question here, almost a week later, I really think that when they had the opportunity at the 13th overall pick, as you said before, and it's not a pick that they're used to picking this high, they had a choice to make. They could, draft a quarterback that they could see developing into their future, franchise quarterback right now. this year. They have that opportunity, but they got to keep it under wraps. They got to keep it a secret. Or I don't know why I did. Or they can be part of the quarterback rat race that's going to be next year, right? And like we already see, like teams like the Dolphins or the Jets or the Browns, like it kind of seems like they're excited to try and get one of these, quarterbacks that's coming into the draft next year. So the Rams drafting Ty Simpson now, you give him a year behind Stafford, and he impresses me with his football IQ, and I think that's what McVay likes about him a lot too. So like if he really is a sponge type of guy, let him watch Stafford. Let him learn from Stafford. Let him be part of those quarterback room meetings with Stafford in it, right? So that you are preparing him to do it. And I've said this before, and I'll say it again. I find it hilarious that NFL fans, including myself, are always so like critical of like, oh, teams don't develop quarterbacks. Like they just draft them in the first round and throw them on in there. And then here we are. We have a team that they use high draft capital to draft and develop a quarterback so that they can have like, a Green Bay type of transition. And if we're going from Jared Goff to Matthew Stafford to a productive quarterback in Ty Simpson is what the goal would be, that's awesome, right? Like you and I have talked before, the quarterback carousel is the worst ride ever as an NFL fan, right? Like trying to convince yourself that Austin Davis or Sean Hill is the guy. No, I don't want to go back to that life, and I'm happy with this pick. But anyway, sorry, I rambled on there. What are your thoughts in regards to how the approach to this Ty Simpson pick and the philosophy behind it?
Yeah, I think definitely I'm with you after night one of the draft and even the day after. I was definitely buying into the, like, is McVay really behind this kind of pick thing? Just, you could tell the demeanor, body language is all off, but you also understand, like, he's a human. He was having a bad day. And on top of the fact,
grumpy, like, he's been grumpy before. Yeah.
Oh, yeah. And he's, he's clarified he didn't want to make it look like they were pushing Stafford out the door. So all that stuff gave me more hope because McVay will be working with Simpson directly. But when it comes to the fact of just like what excites the Rams about Simpson and why they picked him, I think first off, like they've mentioned multiple times that like this pick they're viewing as a bonus pick coming from the Falcons. And this is one that, again, they'll probably not be this high in a while. And I think what they liked with Simpson is the fact, like they've mentioned a lot of times, his background with his dad in football and just the way he loves football and how he knows the game. If you saw the video with him and John Gruden, you see the smarts that he has in the IQ. But while he still only played 15 games, I think a really good point that I don't even remember who it was that made it. It might have been Peter Schrager talking about with him only playing 15 games and with him being raw at this point, developing behind the scenes, the Rams can really mold him into whatever they want him to be. And Sean McVay can mold him into whatever quarterback just because he doesn't have these patterns and tendencies that are etched into him that you have to train him out of. And while he is 24, he's only played in those 15 games. So I think the Rams like how he's really smart and he has the above the neck, as Sean McVay says. He's an athletic quarterback and he can develop behind the scenes. And hopefully it does work out in the case that it did for Green Bay, where they're able to seamlessly transition to Jordan Love. But we obviously hope as Rams fans that we aren't looking back at the end of this season being like, if we just only selected, a receiver or some other difference maker here, maybe we would have won the Super Bowl. That's the hope with this. And I think the Rams can still win a Super Bowl without making one of those impact plays. I just think that the margin for error goes from a little bit bigger to a little bit smaller, just because this player is probably not going to play this year. So, yeah, that's kind of my thoughts on that.
No, totally. And it's interesting you mentioned that. It kind of made me think back to last draft when the Rams, they trade back to, and eventually they take Terrence Ferguson in the second round, but they get this pick because of that trade. Is there a player that would have been available in that pick that would have helped them beat the Seahawks this year in the NFC Championship game? I don't know.
It's hard to tell. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's just a thought that I had there, and I see Mr. Hardcore. Appreciate you coming on in.
What's up, Mr. Hardcore? Yeah, that argument is always interesting because I can definitely understand the logic behind it of like, if we would have just picked a player that would actually help us this year with how close these games are, that could put you over the top. But at the same time, there's hindsight with it. Like a lot of times we're saying that weeks and weeks into the season when we're seeing how players are doing, like the Rams could have just picked him. Just like for other teams, it's like, oh, other teams could have picked Aaron Donald. If they just did that, their lives would have been a lot easier. So I can definitely understand it. But I definitely think the Ty Simpson pick is growing on me more. And a perspective that I really appreciate that I've seen a lot of people bring up is the fact that with having what is expected to be the successor to Matthew Stafford in the Rams organization right now, that does help them to be a little bit more aggressive for this window that they're in right now,
Yeah.
because they don't have to worry about, well, if we win the Super Bowl, Stafford retires, we have no answer at quarterback. They have their answer in place right now, at least as they see it. And so they can be more aggressive with the draft capital that they have, because typically you'd be worried about giving up that draft capital because you'd be using that to trade up in next year's draft or to trade for Joe Burrow, whatever it may be. But now that if this answer ends up playing out the way they think, they can use that capital to be able to get impact players now if they need it for this push. So that's definitely a good security blanket right there.
Absolutely. So we've talked a lot about Ty Simpson. We have some other draft picks to talk about here. And let me just say this. Okay, let's take the Ty Simpson pick off the board here. What was your favorite pick from this draft?
That's a really good question. I feel like I can't say it's between two players because we only have 5 players. I feel like that's cheating to be like, it's between these two.
5 players.
I would probably say, so like a lot of people are saying CJ Daniels, which makes sense. That's an exciting pick. I'm actually going to go with Keagen Trost on the offensive line. And the reason I like this pick is because he started 7 years in college. So he's been in college since 2019. He has a lot of reps and he's played every single position on the offensive line. And he graded out really well as a run blocker, which the Rams value in this system. And so I really liked Keagen Trost. Some people say they reach, some people don't. I think he's a good player at the end of the day. And having a good player as depth on the offensive line is huge, especially if you face some injuries on the offensive line. To have a guy who can move anywhere on the offensive line, on top of the fact that, this may be Steve Avila's last year. Maybe he gets a big contract somewhere else. And hopefully Keagen Trost, by the time next year comes around, will be ready to slide in there. So kind of an unpopular pick, but I like that one just because it feels like a very safe pick. You can put him anywhere. He's good as depth, and hopefully he can become a starter one day.
You know what? It actually reminds me of Joe Noteboom before he was like he got paid for the Rams. And we people forget, we saw some good football from Joe Noteboom when he was that versatile offensive lineman for him. And so, yeah, I kind of see, Ross playing that role there.
Yeah. I'm excited to see what Trost can do. Just good offensive line depth. But what was your favorite pick outside of like Ty Simpson, if you had to pick one?
So Mr. Hardcore and me agree. So our tight end room is going to be nasty with Max Klare, CJ Daniels, coming at wide receiver. And I do love the CJ Daniels pick, and like the reaction of him like getting drafted, that was so like wholesome, that was pure, cool. And like loved it. But I will say Max Klare. Klare. I want to say Clark instinctively, but Klare. Max Klare. He is my favorite pick of this draft, just because I love what the Rams are doing in this tight end room. I am a big believer that if you have something that you're really good at and you can get even better at it, do it. And this tight end room, it was deep last year. It's still a pretty young room, right? Like I know Higbee's there and Parkinson's there, but like Davis Allen's still pretty young, right? And so Terrence Ferguson, obviously young, and now they add in Max. And I love that you can take something that you're really good at and make it even better, right? And so how much fun is Stafford going to have knowing that if we run all these 13 personnel packages, I got just these monster tight ends that all look the exact same and confuse, confuse the defense. And I love it. I love it.
Yeah, that was a good pick there with Max Klare. And he's a fun tight end just because very athletic, very quick, very fast. And he does remind me a lot of Terrence Ferguson just in the play style that he has of like not just being a traditional tight end, because a lot of people say he's not a great blocker and that's something he has to work on. he's more of just a good athletic tight end. So to be able to mix them up, move them around on there, and if Ferguson gets hurt, this is a guy that can slide in pretty close to what Ferguson's doing. I think it's really good for now. I don't know how many reps he'll get this year, but Colby Parkinson and Davis Allen have their contracts up after this season. So you could be living in a world where it's Tyler Higbee and Terrence Ferguson next year. And then now that you have Max Klare there, he's going to be the third guy. So I do like this pick. And Sean McVay does talk about the fact that he wants to have a good amount of tight ends up on game day just in case any get hurt. They don't have to change the game plan at all. So I definitely appreciate that for this pick as well.
Yeah, and I think there maybe is a bit of an insurance to Higbee coming back too, right? Because like he's missed time the past 2 seasons, and if he does have a re-aggravated soft tissue injury, you just don't know about that, right? So I like it as a pick. Overall, like we said, this seemed to be a draft to develop draft players that you can develop and add depth to your team, and I would say that the Rams were successful in that.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, I agree with that. And I keep seeing SoFire bring up Tim Keenan, who's our last pick here in the draft. This is a tush-push stopper. He's amazing. What did you think about that pick? Obviously, another good depth player, but what do you think about the pick that we have with Tim Keenan?
Yeah, I'll be honest. Whenever it gets to kind of those later round picks and things like that, you have a bias of like, okay, like if they can make the roster, right? Like if they can do it. And I do think out of all these draft picks, Tim Keenan might have the best chance to actually like see the field in some capacity, just because he would be in a rotation. I don't think I don't think he's challenging for like a starting position. Don't get me wrong, but I think that I do think we'll see a lot of him in the preseason, and I think if he has a good preseason and a good camp, we might see him stick around for a while and go into kind of that rotational, D-line position with the Rams.
Yeah, because I do think it was a good point that SoFire made about like stopping the tush push, but also like he's supposed to be like a good nose tackle backup for Poona Ford in there. So again, who knows how much we'll see him. I think that like this comment brought up, Rams fan Japan says CJ Daniels is the pick I'm most excited for. He makes the most unbelievable catches. This is the guy that I would argue to you about, like he maybe could be the one that has the highest chance to see the field this year. Just for the fact that like wide receiver 3 still isn't fully solidified yet. Like you have Whittington and you have Mumpfield who are kind of competing there, but by no means is it like, oh, that third guy is just a bona fide star that isn't going to have guys take over. So excited for CJ Daniels too. I'm assuming he's going to get time in the preseason unless he does really well in camp and the Rams don't want to risk injury. But yeah, the catches he was making, it did remind me a little bit of Puka Nacua, whereas like just put the ball up there, even if it looks improbable, he finds a way to come down with it. And I think that is a valuable trait, especially when you have a pinpoint quarterback in Matthew Stafford that does throw those 50-50 balls and gives those guys a chance. That's where I feel like CJ Daniels could make an impact, because while he's not the most well-rounded wide receiver right now, that trait in and of itself, you have a good accurate quarterback to put it on him, and he's going to come down with it most of the time. So that's a very exciting pick as well.
Absolutely. And yeah, when I watch CJ Daniels highlights, like those are highlights that like it make you briefly question of like, oh, was that the best catch I ever saw? Right. And like you rationalize it and stuff, but like in that immediate second when he makes it, you're like, oh, okay, right. Like Puka does that all the time, right? So it's a I don't think it's a skill in Madden, but just like insane catch would be 99.
Yeah. And it is valuable, especially when you're not wide receiver 1. And another comment that I want to bring up here from Rob, I appreciate him saying this. He said, "Good stuff, guys. You have to keep in mind it is rare. It is a rare rookie that makes an impact in his first year of playing on this team. They don't just choose to play rookies right away, so it doesn't really matter who was drafted first. They probably wouldn't contribute as much as everyone thinks." And that's a good point. I mean, even in the first few years of Sean McVay, it felt like it was hard for any rookie to play. And I think we've gotten more accustomed to rookies making an impact in playing and being just absolute like hit draft picks that the Rams have had with the, like Steve Avila's, Kobe Turner's, Byron Young, Puka Nacua, like those kinds of picks, to where the Rams have done so well. And they've also needed to fill out the roster more, where maybe we expect to have more of those instant impact guys. But he does make a good point, especially on a roster like this. It would be hard for any rookie to make a big impact. So I don't know what you think about that, but
yeah, no, I 100% agree with you and Rob in that regards. And to be honest, I kind of like it because I look at teams that depend on rookie talent year after year, and they don't get a whole lot better, right? Like, well, like when
yeah,
you look at a team like the Jets or the Browns or something like that, like like when they don't re-sign their rookies and they're always moving on, to new players and stuff, it's tough to truly like develop as a winning culture as a team, right? And that's what we've seen with the Rams under Sean McVay and Les Snead, and I'm here for it.
yeah. It'll be exciting though. I mean, you never know. As Rob was just talking about, like you don't know which kind of rookie is going to make an impact, and just because one's picked higher than the other doesn't mean that they're going to make a bigger impact,
Yeah.
especially on this Rams team. And it will be interesting too to see. Like I've been thinking a lot about the UDFA's that we're signing, that every team does after the draft is over, signing those guys, especially for camp. But the amount of UDFA's that are on this Rams roster that are making an impact at key positions is really notable. And so even like the UDFA's that we're signing right now, despite this roster being super competitive, I would not be surprised if at least one of them made the roster, just based on the fact that like the Rams roster is filled with those, but they don't just throw those guys out there because they don't have any talent. They have an eye for that kind of talent. So it's going to be really interesting to see the way that this draft shakes up. Of like, do the Rams keep all 5 of these guys in this year? Do they make some cuts? Do they make a cut on 2 of the guys that they drafted, but keep 2 UDFA's? Like that's going to be the really interesting thing, I think, for me to watch as we get closer to that time.
Most certainly, yeah. So let's see. It's weird. I feel like so we've talked through all of our draft picks, and it's weird there's only 5 to talk through here.
Yeah, kind of nice though, honestly.
Yeah, no, like I'm here for it. Are you cool? I did come up with a couple of juicy over Rams actions for you in the chat if you're game.
I'm so game. It's been a while since over Rams actions. Can't wait.
Awesome. For those of you who are new, this segment is called Over Rams Actions. It's where we give a hot take about the Rams, and either myself or Rams House, whoever is hosting the segment or not, you have to decide, is it an over Rams action or an under Rams action, or appropriate, right? And of course, you in the chat, we would love if you say over or under in the chat. Just because we'd love to, engage you guys and hear what you're saying here. And I would argue that this past week has been some of the craziest over Rams actions we've seen in a long time. And that's saying something about this fan base, which we are proud members of, right?
Yeah,
which we are proud members of. So these are all things that I've seen. I had a fun time on the internet the past week, seeing some hot takes about the Rams. And so this first one here, okay. The Rams did not draft a quarterback at pick 13. They drafted motivation. Stafford is going to win MVP again next year.
Ooh, that's a really good one. Because Stafford's a competitor coming off of a really good season, set up well as long as health goes his way. This is where I have to try to separate bias as best as I can, because I want to be like, oh yeah, he's going to do it again. It's hard to win back-to-back MVPs.
Yeah, it's hard to win one MVP.
Yeah, right? To win back-to-back. I wouldn't say it's like a definite, it's locked in, he's just going to win MVP, especially now that they drafted Ty Simpson. But I do expect a very good season from Matthew Stafford again. But to say he's winning back-to-back just for sure locked in, I wouldn't put it past it, but I wouldn't say it's going to happen. So I'd say it's an over Rams action, but I wouldn't be surprised if he did.
Mr. Hardcore, I like this. Not an over Rams action. Oh, yeah.
I like it.
Very cool. Very cool. Okay. All right. That's the first one. The second one, and we've kind of talked about this a little bit today, but I'm going to say it like it is. The Rams roster is so set in stone, it's uncomfortable heading into training camp, right? Like maybe people want a little bit of competition. They don't necessarily like all the starters locked in right away. The Rams, maybe they're missing out on on someone, but it is the Rams roster so set in stone that it's uncomfortable.
I would, just speaking for myself, I would probably say no, just because I think that the Rams are one of those teams that like your roster spot is never really safe. And with the fact like they never count the draft status and things like that just to be able to put you ahead of someone else who may have a lower status. It feels like this roster and the coaching staff, especially over the last 4 or 5 years, has done a really good job of emphasizing that you have to earn your spot every single day. And it does feel like they mean that, because even like guys like Joe Noteboom, who got paid the big contract that we were just talking about, AJ Jackson was able to outwork him as a UDFA and
Yeah.
took that spot just a year after he got his contract. So
Good point.
I would honestly say no, but I see what you're saying with that. So I'd say it's an over Rams action, but that's just speaking for myself. I wonder what other people have to say about that.
Okay. Yeah. Mr. saying over Rams action. Okay. All right.
What do
I
you
like
think?
it. Yeah, no, I do think the Rams are pretty good, like you said, about like the player that wins the job wins it. I would be surprised, and I think if it's like, I'm not going to name names because I don't want to put that on the internet, but
Yeah.
like if there was a certain position on the Rams team that like right now we look at their roster and we're like, okay, that player is the starter there. And then day one comes and it wasn't because of injury. It was because of, a player really impressed during camp. They took over that position. I would get excited about that.
Yeah.
So I would say I'm not uncomfortable, but as soon as we saw, if we see something like that happens, I'll be like, oh, that's different. That's surprising. So that's
Yeah.
kind of where I'm at.
Yeah. I could totally see that.
Yeah. Okay. The next over Rams action. Robert Woods, age 34, will be the next Rams head coach when McVay retires in 10 years. And I want to just say that I saw this. I don't know who it was by, but this comment came. It was the press conference after day 3 of the draft with McVay and Snead. And I saw someone, I'm like, that's so random. Okay. And so I wrote it down intentionally to talk about it on today's show. But what are your thoughts? I know you're a big Bobby Trees fan.
Oh yeah, love Bobby Trees. Yeah, I mean, it wouldn't surprise me. We haven't seen him as a coach yet, but he definitely has the personality to be able to do that. My hope is that selfishly we still have McVay for longer than 10 years, but
Fair.
I'll just put it in the terms of the next Rams head coach is going to be Robert Woods, which that would be awesome. I would love that. I'm just for the vibes of it, I'm going to say that's not an over Rams action.
Okay. Rams fan Japan said 2046. Okay, so we got 20 more years with McVay. I'm cool with that.
Let's enjoy it.
But yeah, I'd get excited for Bobby Trees if that were to happen for sure.
It's interesting how Robert Woods is 34 because he's the same age as Devontae Adams. And
That is
it's weird.
interesting.
It feels like it's been forever since I've seen Robert Woods play, but I guess he's only 34. So
It's because he was like he's battled injuries kind of the last couple of years of his career.
yeah,
And he was kind of buried on some depth charts, in the Texans and the Titans. So, and I guess he was the Steelers for a hot minute there too. But yeah, no, I as soon as he retired as a Ram and then like the next day became a coach, I was like, that's phenomenal. I
felt
love
like dream scenario.
Yeah, cool. Because Robert Woods is one of the people that helped establish the Rams culture as it currently is. And so having him come, to be a coach in it, I love the continuity, right?
I love that too. And it's like you just see little things of like what Robert Woods brought to this Rams team and like the way the receivers block and everything. And I'm always gonna think of that Cooper Cup tweet that he sent out about like when he came in his rookie year, he was modeling everything that he did after what Robert Woods did, even in the blocking kind of game, like that kind of effort. So it's like it feels like Robert Woods, like his DNA is infused into this team still,
Yeah.
which obviously he's a coach now, but it feels like in the way that our receivers play, you still have that little reminiscence of Bobby Trees. So I love that.
No, 100%, 100%. Okay, I got 2 more here for you. 2 more.
All right.
Another Ty Simpson's overreaction here. The Rams drafting Ty Simpson is only a big story because every other team was so boring during the NFL draft.
That's not an over Rams action. I mean, like you can make an argument that they reached on him and I really think that the biggest reason that this thing has gotten so big was because the Rams did such a good job keeping it under wraps for so long. Like this really wasn't a big story heading into the draft of, oh, this is where the Rams are looking. They want to get Ty Simpson. Everything was about the Cardinals or the Jets maybe taking him, and maybe here and there UT or Rams and stuff like that. But I think, yeah, it was just because the Rams kept it so quiet that this thing was such a shock, because it was so off of the board of what every other team kind of felt normal, as you're saying, just kind of regular. This was a big shock, though. So I'd agree with this one, not an over Rams action.
Yeah, and again, like I think anytime any team drafts a quarterback in the first round, it's going to be met with a certain criticism to it of overreaction or not. But I do think the fact that Sean McVay and the Rams drafting a quarterback in the first round at 13 with Matthew Stafford coming off an MVP season, that is going to cause be a big story. But the reality is, there weren't a lot of other teams that did a whole lot of like dramatic trades, right? Like, besides Mendoza, there wasn't another quarterback in the first round, right? Like, it's kind of the way that the draft just sort of played out. And honestly, like, I was watching the draft passively with my brothers while we were disc golfing, and like it seemed by kind of like round 4-ish, teams started to kind of go into coast mode. There were a few late round trades and things like that. Like, the Rams traded up to get Daniels, but it didn't seem to have the same drama. Well, I guess like last year there was the Shadur Sanders, so maybe that was just like more drama than we're used to in the draft. But anyway, that's just an observation.
Yeah, no, I definitely agree with that one.
All right, I got my last one here for you.
Okay.
Les Snead and Sean McVay have worked together for 10 years. The Rams' next 10 years will be even better than their last 10 years.
Oh, wow.
So let me just, while you're thinking and collecting your thoughts, you have 9 winning seasons, 8 playoff appearances. You have 2 Super Bowl appearances, 1 Super Bowl win, and then also an NFC Championship, appearance this year. So like in the past 10 years, the Rams have been a perennial, contender and in the conversation for the Super Bowl for a decade, which is crazy to me to think about as a Rams fan. The Rams' next 10 years will be even better than their last 10 years. Over Rams action or not?
That's a really good one. And I think it depends on how you look at it. Because what if, let's say they win 2 Super Bowls in the next 10 years, but they aren't as consistent of having winning seasons? Let's say instead of like 8 winning seasons, they have, 5. Would you count that as more successful because they got 2 Super Bowls out of it compared to the last 10 years we've gotten 1? Because I could totally see the Rams in the next 10 years winning 2 Super Bowls. I'm not saying it's going to happen, but I could see that happening. And if that's the case, it would be better than the last 10, in my opinion. But it depends on how you define it, I guess.
Yeah. I do think, and maybe it's just like the last 2 seasons where the Rams have earned a certain respect from the NFL that they didn't have before. And I believe that respect was definitely earned, but there was a lot of years there where like teams would view the Rams as like kind of this scrappy underdog, every game, that sort of
Especially
thing.
Versus the Seahawks.
Yeah. And so like, I feel like now there's this respect of like, oh no, like we got to play the Rams. And like when you watch other content creators do like their schedule prediction and stuff, they'll often say that their team loses to the Rams, right? And like that's a badge of honor.
Yeah. Well, yeah, especially compared to what it was like for a long stretch of time, where, like you said, we were like viewed as a scrappy team that maybe would give your team a tough out every now and then. But it is crazy how the expectation now is like at the bar minimum, like just make the playoffs. Like that's the lowest. If it's more of a surprise if the Rams don't make the playoffs than if they go ahead and make a run. So definitely a good spot to be in. And I wouldn't be surprised if the next 10 years were more successful. It's a tall order because they've been so consistently good. But if they get 2 Lombardis out of the next 10 years, that wouldn't surprise me at all. And Mr. Hardcore brings up a good point. Like, as long as McVay stays another 10 years, it's not an overreaction or over Rams action. Sorry for messing that up. But yeah, McVay is definitely a big key piece of this, just like the culture and everything, because we know Stafford's not going to be here another 10 years unless it's like the immortal chamber helps him stay another 10 years. But McVay is definitely the key to it for sure.
Yeah, 100%. And yeah, Juno, always a pleasure to see you. Thanks so much for tuning on in. And I'm of the mindset of, I actually think that the longer McVay stays around, and if Ty Simpson can develop into a quarterback that McVay gets excited to go to work with, I think that works well, because there was always that kind of that fear of, okay, if Stafford retires, does McVay also retire? I think that if McVay has a quarterback that he believes, can help him continue to play good football and win Super Bowls, McVay will be around for a long time, right? I do not see McVay wanting, he's not gonna take on a coaching position or something like that somewhere else that they're just trying to build from the ground up, right? Like McVay has put so much into this Rams organization, and like, as much as we talk about Stafford or Puka Nacua, or we talk about Trent McDuffie, or like any of the Rams star players, right? The biggest superstar on the Los Angeles Rams is their head coach, and he probably would never say it himself, but like,
yeah, true.
That's the reality of it.
Yeah, no, he's a rock star coach to have, and it's cool to see him in the conversations just from NFL fan base perspectives of them putting him as like number one coach, number two coach, number three at worst. Like, to have, I feel like having one of the best head coaches in the league, if not the best head coach, like somewhere in that conversation, is more important than just having good rosters. Because you see a lot of good rosters with bad coaching that don't meet their potential. But as long as you have a really good coach, and if you compare it with a really good quarterback, I mean, you're going to be competing every year. And so having McVay here, I know people always talk about the narrative of maybe him leaving to broadcasting soon. And he talked about, like, when he made that decision to recommit to the Rams after that 2022 season, it was more than just like, okay, let's do this another couple of years and have this conversation every year. It was like a long-term, do I want to keep doing this? And it does feel like the youth and everything that they've brought in has definitely energized Sean McVay, and he has that love and that, like, the why for him coaching. So I'm fully on board with him staying coaching. I thought it was funny because there's a Chiefs fan, I don't know if you saw on Twitter today, he was just stitching together all of the McVay faces after the Ty Simpson pick happened. And he was trying to put together a theory that the Rams were going to get rid of McVay because he wasn't behind the Ty Simpson pick. And he wanted Sean McVay to go to the Chiefs to be the successor to Andy Reid. And he had Sean McVay photoshopped in Chiefs gear and all of that. And I just thought that was really funny because it's like, you really think the Rams would get rid of Sean McVay? Like, that makes no sense at all.
I just know, I've seen Chiefs fans say that before, like after Andy Reid retires, that they should like get Sean McVay as their next head coach. And like, I actually think there's a greater chance of Patrick Mahomes getting traded away from the Chiefs than there is McVay getting traded away from the Rams.
Yeah. Why would you get rid of him? Like, it makes no sense. Even just like from because people talk about like how smart he is and what he can do, the plays he remembers and all of that. But it's also just like, he's such a good culture builder. And like, he is the reason the culture is so good. So I don't know why you'd get rid of that.
And I can see this comment here from Darren about, like he's had some big losses. And I agree with it, Darren. But I would say my favorite thing about McVay as a head coach is that he is accountable, right? Like the biggest difference between Sean McVay and Jeff Fisher as a head coach that I see, McVay made the locker room accountable to each other right away. Yeah. Jeff Fisher, the players loved him. You can look up, Chris Long interviews, James Laurinaitis interviews, and like they'll talk, Aaron Donald, like they'll talk about how they love Fisher. Yeah. But there was something about Sean McVay that he brought in this just like accountability to, not just your craft as a player, but, learning the playbook, learning how to watch film and prepare for a game, right? And so my favorite thing about McVay is like, I actually think he's gotten better as a head coach, like as he's gone on, right? Like he's learned along the way. And so I'm excited for, the next, however many years Sean McVay wants to be the head coach. I'm excited for.
Yeah, he's a one of a kind coach. It's similar to like what was it?
Or in his words, he's a stud.
He's a stud. He's one of one, as he would say. As it's one of those things of like we talk about with Stafford. As soon as Stafford retires, the drop off is going to be there. No matter who you bring in, it's really unlikely that anybody who comes after Stafford is going to be better or do the same things that Stafford does. I think it's the same thing with McVay. It's like he is so unique and rare, and you just don't find guys like this even over like 100-year sample size that like you got to enjoy having him. And I always cherish what Andrew Whitworth talks about. He brings up a lot of what he really liked when he first joined the Rams and when McVay, obviously they came in at the same time, is he talked about how McVay talked about things like body language and about how you treat others and like all these like little fundamental things that go from just a human like psychology standpoint that are like foundational for what the Rams do now. And I feel like a lot of coaches don't value those kinds of things, but it was setting the thing of like, when a play goes wrong, don't show it with your body language, like be there and support your teammate. It's like little stuff like that where those things add up over time. They sound cliche, but if like a culture really adapts that and brings that in, that's why when you have a Devontae Adams come in, he's like, other organizations I was at, it felt like there was a dark cloud over the building, but I come to the Rams and it doesn't even feel like I'm doing work. And it's like, I don't know. I just realized we're on this long Sean McVay tangent, but he deserves it. He deserves the credit.
Yeah, absolutely.
Love having him here.
I do have a couple of fun little rankings here for you if you're game.
Ooh.
So
is this the one that I'm thinking?
Pardon?
Is this the one I'm thinking? The like blind ranking?
Yeah, blind rankings. Yeah.
All right. This is always fun, but kind of scary. I'm excited
though. So everyone in the chat, for those of you who are new, this is a fun little segment we do, and I'll list off, a topic and a Ram or something related to it, and Rams House has to rank them from 1 to 5 without knowing what comes next. Mm-hmm. So, given that the NFL draft just happened, I'm going to say rank these Rams first round draft picks without knowing who comes next.
All right.
Okay.
This is exciting.
First one, Jared Goff. 1 to 5. 1 to 5.
Okay. And I just want to make sure it's not just in the McVay Snead era. It's just overall.
Yes, overall. Yeah.
Okay. Overall. Jared Goff, I'll put at 3.
3. Okay. Interesting. Okay. That's some proof, Dave. Tavon Austin.
Oh man. 4.
4. Okay. Todd Gurley.
Ooh, good one. I'm worried. I'm always worried you're going to pull out an even better one later. So I'm like, do I go 2 or do I go 1? That's where I'm thinking. I'll go 1, but I'm scared putting him 1 here.
Okay. Aaron Donald.
That's who I thought you were going to pick. Okay, 2. At least it's not egregious. Todd Gurley, Aaron Donald, they're both great players.
Yeah. But okay, that's fair. All right. You didn't fall for my little trick that time. The last one's going to be Jason Smith.
All right, 5. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I think you got that one right. Good job.
Okay, not bad. Aaron Donald probably should have been first. It's funny. That was the player that was coming to my mind when I was like, I feel like there's one more good player coming. But at least both Aaron Donald and Todd Gurley were greats for the Rams. I'll take it.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's a good one, though.
Yeah. Hey, Jared. Good to see you, man.
What's up, Jared?
Okay. My next one's a lot more kind of quirky and fun. That one was like pretty basic. Okay, I got Ram. Okay. I gotta compose myself. Okay. I'm a professional.
Oh yeah.
Rank these Ty Simpson comments from the internet from serious to pure nonsense without knowing what comes next.
All right. Serious would be like number 1. Nonsense would be like 5. Right?
Yeah. No, we're gonna so like serious number 1, pure nonsense number 5. Yeah.
Okay. Good to go.
Ty Simpson will. First off, wait, let me caveat. All of these were legit comments I found from YouTube or Twitter. And if you have thought any of these things, thank you for this. Thank you. So rank these Ty Simpson comments from the internet from serious to pure nonsense without knowing what comes next. First up, Ty Simpson will beat out Matthew Stafford for the starting quarterback job of the Los Angeles Rams this season.
Well, I think there's going to be a worse one than this, so I'm going to go 4 on that. So like unserious.
Okay, so
that would be crazy.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. Okay, I've seen a lot of this one. This is probably the most common one. Ty Simpson will be traded for Joe Burrow when Stafford retires.
This honestly wouldn't surprise me a ton.
No?
Like, actually, it would not surprise. If Joe Burrow came available, I would not be surprised if Ty Simpson was thrown in. That feels very much like a Rams thing. So I'm actually going to put this at 3.
Put 3. Okay. So you have 3 and you have 4. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Ty Simpson will throw for over 7 touchdowns over the entire preseason this year.
That's not bad. I'll go 2.
2? Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. All right, you got 2 more here.
Okay.
Okay. Straight face. Here we go. Drafting Ty Simpson cost the Rams the Super Bowl next season. Thanks, Les.
I feel bad putting this one at 5 because I wouldn't be surprised if they just needed one more difference maker. But I'm also not going to put that as a definite that's going to happen. So I'm going to have to go 5 here as unserious.
Okay.
Because I don't think it's set in stone like, oh yeah, that's totally going to happen at number 1.
Okay, so you're saying that this is your number 1 pick. Your this final statement.
I guess I had to put this one at number 1.
Okay, well, I think you actually did a pretty good job. The Rams used the 13th pick to draft a backup quarterback this season. It's up to Ty if it's going to be more than that.
Wow, that is like perfect for number 1. Yeah. I actually really like the way this turned out.
Yeah, no, I think you did pretty good. Great job.
Thank you. Sorry, I was just laughing at Steve-O's comment. That was very random. I'm just reading through all these objective things, and then I just...
Which one?
The one at the very bottom.
Oh, yeah.
That one got me. Yeah,
one
those lists are always fun, though.
Fans who loves Rams content. We appreciate you, Steve-O.
Yeah, those are always fun, though, those blind ranking lists. Every time I feel like one could go incredibly bad. And I've never gotten a perfect blind ranking, but that was not terrible, honestly.
See, that's the fun about it, right? You don't know.
It is. Yeah, I love it.
All right. Well, speaking of love, I have loved this episode of First Down Rams. It's been too long. Thank you so much for everyone who watched, whether you're with us live now or on the replay. Feel free to like and subscribe to both our channels. We'll go live again at some point in the off season when there's stuff to talk about. We didn't even talk about jerseys this episode, which is crazy.
We did. We still have 2 more coming though, so maybe we can redeem ourselves then when those 2 throwbacks or whatever come out. Yeah.
Ramsos, you got anything coming out the next couple weeks?
Yeah. So just whatever topics are going to be needing to be discussed, I'll try to do my best on for the Rams here. Who knows what those topics could be, because it could be anything from draft. It could be anything to uniforms. Hopefully we get an alternate sometime soon. If that happens anytime soon, I'll be here to talk about it because, of course, it's off season, so I make uniform videos. But yeah, anything Rams, be ready for it. What about you?
I'm slowly but surely. Anyone who's been following my channel knows I just moved recently, so I'm kind of getting in. Honestly, my goal for my channel is I need to decorate this room because it looks not Rams right now, so I need to put some time in just decorating it.
Yeah.
But my goal is I hope to have at least one video a week for the rest of the off season, if not a little bit more, depending on what happens. But I plan on talking about Rams every day for the rest of my life, and I love it.
Yeah. No, I'm excited. Very excited. Glad we could do this again, though. It's been too long for sure.
And I'll just address this. Yes, this is actually my first live stream from this room, actually. Yeah, I've made videos in here, but this is the first live stream here. But like I said, there's a bunch of stuff there that the previous person left behind that I need to get rid of. And then, I got to get some cool stuff on the walls here.
Yep. Well, I'm excited and honored that I was the first one to do a stream with you in the new digs.
There's no one I'd rather be the first stream with.
Hey, I appreciate it. Appreciate you, Peo. Appreciate all of you guys in the chat. You guys always, you can try that again. You guys always make this fun. So I appreciate you guys tuning in. Be on the lookout. As Peo Time said, we're not going to be live every single week in the off season. We're going to ramp up as training camp starts and all of that. But if there's any big news to talk about, you can count on us to be here every Wednesday night. And
shout out to all the Rams content creators who are going live every single week, because you guys are phenomenal.
Both horns, they're doing an incredible job. Yeah. Thank you guys so much for watching. As always, horns up and God bless.
And I almost messed up my outro there.
You got it. You got it.
As always, go Rams, horns up, and peace out. Let's go Rams. Woo!
Oh, yeah.